First of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being so welcoming. You know, one of the things that I love the most, and I appreciate you reading the list of awards and accomplishments, but ultimately what's kind of left off that list, and I think that everybody in this room really focuses on, is service. I mean, it really is about, you know, how do you best serve? How do you take the advantages that you've been given and the little bit of leverage that you might have at that moment, and sometimes for me that's a microphone, and how do you sort of shout and get resources or attention or tell stories or just make your voice heard a little bit louder and maybe drag some other people along with you so that their voices, which often fall, you know, under the radar, also are elevated and are heard. Diane, thank you times a million. It's so funny because when you look at what Diane focuses on and really puts her passion into, it's exactly what I do. I mean, it really is, you know, when it comes to empowering communities, that's what Black in America was about, taking a look at, you know, how do you look at education to empower a community and haul people into the middle class. When it comes to educating people about finances, that was Almighty Debt, our documentary about educating African Americans because of the clear roots between where we are today in a down economy and slavery, frankly. When it comes to really thinking about how we can use our voices and leveraging our voices, all the work that she does in placing Blacks and Hispanics on boards to make sure that our voices are heard around the table and in crucial and important ways at the right moments. I mean, it's like you're just Black in America, my next documentary. You know, I also think the idea of just, you know, really I think in a lot of ways, the ways we've all gotten here to this room, which is breaking down obstacles because we either had somebody push us or somebody pull us or a little bit of both, and then, as I like to describe my job sometimes, you walk in and you just slam your head into the wall a few times and get your day going. That also, I think, is what Diane does through her work. You know, she makes sure that the next generation of people will be more empowered and will make a real tangible change and really literally move the needle, which is what I try to do in small ways every day. So I just want to thank you for having me and letting me be part of your day-to-day. I wrote this book, or my memoir, because I really had heard a lot of stories about my mom. As Charles, you know my mom so well, and my mom hates talking about herself, as you know. But I felt that as my mom was getting up in age, I wanted to tell the story of how she and my dad met in Baltimore, Maryland, in 1958. Well, don't clap yet. My mom tells the story of how they met, which was my mother used to go to daily mass. And my dad, they were at Johns Hopkins. My mom was working in the chemistry department. My dad was getting his PhD. And so she would walk to mass and my dad would drive. And every day he would wind down the window. And when I would tell this story to college students, I'm like, there were no power windows. You had to lean over, like literally wind down the window. People, that was a lot, you know. You had to like a girl to do that every day. And so my dad would wind down the window and say, would you like a ride? And my mother would say, no, thank you, because you don't take a ride from a man you don't know well. You know? Right. I don't need a microphone. Really, you can't hear me? Okay, how's that? Better? You don't take a ride from a man you don't know well, was her whole theory. I'm like, really? To daily mass? I mean, if there's going to be a safe place to meet a man, I'm going to, but whatever, I digress. And then my mom would tell the story about how one day she said, yes, actually she would like a ride, and they made a date to go on a date. But everywhere they went for dinner that night would not serve them, because my dad is white and my mom is Black. And they were turned away every step of the way. And my mom told the story about how she, you know, she's from Cuba, and so she can make amazing Cuban food. And so she told the story about how finally she just took my dad back to her apartment and whipped up this amazing Cuban meal. On the first day? On the first day, right, exactly. Which is where her entire point was, so girls, if you could cook, you could get a man. And I like to say, I can't make it, but I can make it happen in about 20 minutes. It will be delivered to my door. So, you know, but really, I think the story that me and my 5 brothers and sisters took from that was about, you know, overcoming obstacles and just focusing on what you thought you could achieve and do. My parents ended up getting married at the end of 1958 when interracial marriage was illegal here. And so they drove to D.C. and got hitched and then lived illegally. And then my mother would tell us about it. People who'd say, you know, the helpful friends who'd say, you know, don't have kids because biracial children will never fit in this world. I'm number 5 of 6. My parents clearly never listened to anybody on any front, ever. But I think for us growing up, it was a great opportunity, and I try to pass this along to young people about, just because other people say you can't, and they will, really has no correlation to whether you can or you can't. I mean, it's much more correlated to whether you believe them. And if you believe them, yeah, that's right, you cannot. But if you don't care, and as you know, my mother loves to sort of say, thank you for your input, and ignore. And so that was really why I wanted to write this book. I wanted to inspire people to realize that, we don't have to fit into a box, that we are masters of our own destiny, even if sometimes you're not given the greatest starting place, whether that's poverty or just circumstances sometimes, or just a bad break, which everybody has that at some point. And that, in a way, doesn't matter. It's about figuring out your internal resources, and maybe more importantly, your external resources, all the people who want to help you, if you just show up and ask for that help. And I thought that, telling my mom's story and then my story about really why I became a journalist would be a good thing to do. And then lastly, I'll just share one story about my mom, who I wish she were here because she's so funny, and she's in ill health. But she was a teacher in my high school, and I went to a high school that was like 99.9669999% white, and roughly speaking. And so my mom was a teacher in my own high school, and one day when I was a freshman in college, we had a deal that I could take her Chevette for the day, if I, hey, don't mock the Chevette. I have my own wheels, like the Chevette keys. And so I have to just pick her up at 3 o'clock from school. And so I came by to get her, and she was in the hallway, and as we were walking out, we ran into the principal and the assistant principal and one of the deans. And they were with this kid who was like a 13-year-old black kid, which, clearly did not go to this school because there were no black kids in this school. And I remember my mom stopping. And because I was 19 years old and stupid, I was like, come on, let's go, come on. Let's go so I can have the car. And she said, no, we're just going to wait for a minute. And there was this really weird, whoosh, shift in power. Because my mom, who's 5'2", little afro, and one of those awful macrame handbags with the owl shape, remember? With the beads for the eyes that you used to put in, which I believe one of us made for her. She just, so she's like this big, and she just stood there, and she would not go. And I was mortified and horrified and embarrassed because I was a teenager. And she just stood there. And the dean and the principal and the assistant principal said, Mrs. O'Brien, we have this under control. You can carry on. And she said, no, actually, I'm just going to stay for a minute. And I remember, literally there was a shift in power because it became very awkward. And this little kid who did not know anybody in the hallway looked at my mom and knew that she was there, standing there for him. And it wasn't fully about race. It was sort of just like, someone is here saying, I'm going to be a witness to whatever it is that's about to go down. And she was also saying to the principal and the assistant principal and the dean, the same thing. And those are her bosses. Those were her employers. I'm here to be a witness to whatever is about to go down. I'm just, and in a way, that's what journalism is. You're just like, I'm just going to stand here and take notes. And then I'm going to record exactly what happens as it happens. And to me, I've always found that so powerful, just the idea of, if you agree to be that person who will stand with someone, then you have more power than anybody else in the room, even if you're 5'2" with your little afro and your macrame handbag, she literally was the most powerful person in that room. And I saw that transformation in my own high school with my own principal from the year before, happen in front of my eyes, and it really made me realize the power I think all of us have, right? Because ultimately it was just all she did was just stand up. She just would not go. She just wouldn't go. And as you know, sister, right, my mom is very, very stubborn, right? So the minute someone says to her, oh, move on, she's like, oh, now I have planted my feet. You couldn't push me if you wanted to. But in a way, that's really inspired me to become a journalist. And again, it's why I wanted to write this book, to sort of, I think, to tell people that we all have that opportunity. We really do, and it just requires enough bravery to sort of say, no, I think I'll stay for a minute, thanks. And I really appreciate that you come out today, and I'm so encouraged by the support. And the Deltas, I have to say, with due respect to all the other sororities, this is the most gift-givingest group. I have hauled elephants
elephants that are this big through security, the TSA. They're like, what is that? I'm like, I know. It is my second carry-on, yes. So thank you very much. I look forward to signing all the copies of the book, and chatting with you all. Thank you, I appreciate it.